that.
I also
juice.
So this is also horrifying too.
Did you not do damage to him?
No, so I do damage to him, right? Watch it like this. This whole thing goes awry. So he's right here.
Do you hit the lip of the...
So I starfall him. I actually send him up out the... I send him up.
And now he's got high damage on him.
And now when do I die? I get rocketed in the face.
Designing characters for LawBreakers is an interesting process. You may think that it begins with the design team and then immediately moves to the art team, but that's not the case. As our studio grew, we structured the development to create deep multiplayer characters by focusing on rapid gameplay iteration, or prototyping, to make sure that we find the fun in everything that we do and play the game every single day. And Maverick was the first character to solidify that process. This is her story. When Boss Key first started, we had character design ideas, but we needed to establish a process. Maverick was the first character to set the stage for how we develop characters now, as she established a system for characters to include a call sign or name, their role in the battlefield, and what faction they belong to in the fiction. Our design team establishes those gameplay needs first, and then the character creation process begins.
We start out usually with just trying to figure out what is fun. Like, it sounds simple enough, but you know, what's fun? What gaps are we missing? What holes do we need filling in the game? And we realized we needed somebody a little more in the air consistently. So Maverick was a special character as a vertical character. It's one of our characters that we really dug into the vertical space. I mean, but we also wanted to temper her with the idea that she needed to be close. She needed to be up front and in your face. So we gave her this big Gatling gun that drove her to be closer to the fight, which is why she's a skirmisher. The idea of coming into the middle of a fight, running in hard, recklessly, without much armor, getting into the fight, but also jetting away really quickly. So that's who she is. That's when I say Maverick, people have a instant vision in their mind. When we talk about Skirmisher, Skirmisher is a play style, and because we're a symmetric game, we want to make sure that players, regardless of which side they're playing on, whether it's Law or Breakers, understand what the gameplay is to come from the role that they've selected, right? And Skirmisher comes with a play style, but they'll choose Maverick, and Maverick represents the Law. But the faction she's in, the Valkyries, kind of temper that personality. They put her into a space that dictates how maybe good or how evil she is, or whether or not she upholds the law or breaks the law.
Target acquired. How did you... Quad kill.
Design and programming must work as a team to bring characters to the playtest environment. Like I said earlier, you may think that the art team receives the character description from design and gets to work on the visuals first, right? No, that's not how it works. For us, at this point, the character goes into prototyping with our gameplay programmers, who translate design into actual gameplay. Simply put, we want to find the fun first.
Once Dan and Cliff have sort of decided on the high-level concept for the character, I take over the process at that point, and I'm responsible for the design and the implementation of the specific weapons and abilities that make up that character, as well as coding the underlying systems that all characters share. Maverick is actually a really interesting character story because while she did change several times during development, I feel like Maverick is actually sort of foundational to what the game has become. When you first add characters into a game like this, the game doesn't really exist yet. And so the characters can kind of become whatever they want. But at some point, when Maverick comes into the game, in terms of how much mobility she's bringing and her gravity manipulation, it really forced us to sort of reevaluate what the other characters could do. And it really changed and defined what the game was about. Prototyping is actually really crazy. Prototyping is essentially, you take a high-level idea and you really don't know where it's going to end up. Usually what I do is paper design, which is a one-page overview of essentially ideas for what a character could be. And from that paper design, I start doing implementations and trying them out in the game. One of the earlier versions of Maverick, actually her alt fire, her right click, was a shield that you could bring up like this and then shoot your Gatling gun at the same time while it is up. Now I look back and I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, you can see back in the day, you know, we're such a small team, GPPs have to wear a lot of hats. So I actually did all the animations on this prototype. And that's why you can see this like Wu-Tang hand here where she's holding the Gatling gun and this like white cylinder that I was like, oh, this vaguely looks like a Gatling gun. I'm gonna model it in Maya and do my best, you know? And I think it was actually one of the shortest lived features we've had in the game. I think it survived maybe 1 or 2 play tests of people just essentially turtling behind this shield and shooting people up. And it was terrible, it was atrocious.
While some prototypes never see the light of day, our tried and true characters are put into our daily playtest sessions, which we take very seriously at Bosky.
We playtest from beginning until end. We playtest every day. I think about 3 times a day on average is what we're doing. In the beginning, it's really just trying to feel out the character to make sure it's fun. But then after we get it to Trammell and after the art team arts it up and makes it pretty, the character comes back to us. And we need to make sure that things like effects are reading correctly. You know, do you understand what's happening when you press the Q button? Do you understand what's happening when E is pressed? So we need to make sure that everything after art has come in services communication, not just the person who's actually doing the actions, but also from the enemies that are receiving the actions. Because if you get killed and you have no understanding as to why you got killed or what destroyed you, it's just as frustrating as not understanding why your abilities don't work or your weapons don't work the way you think they should be working.
You throw a character into the playtest and you start finding out all the things that are wrong with it. And so it becomes this back and forth of gathering feedback from people within the studio and then making changes to adjust to that feedback pretty much every day. And this just goes on and on until the character is really polished and really sings. Making Maverick actually taught us a lot of lessons about the process that we use here. And one of the things that we do, and one of the things we put a lot of value on, is delighting players with things that they've never seen before and doing gameplay that you don't see in other games. Something a lot of other games tend to do with their class design is sort of just straight up copy classes or mechanics that exist in other games. But we place a huge value on things that people haven't seen, and so we just don't do that. We spend the extra time and the extra effort to make sure that even if we start with something that is familiar, that we guide it to a place that's unique.
How did you stay alive? Domination.
Maverick's story is special because her abilities, her weapons, and her characterization all developed as Bosky matured as a studio. We're going to be doing more of these dev diaries in the future, and we want to hear what you want to see from the behind-the-scenes process at Bosky. So please let us know. Follow us on Twitter at LawBreakers and at Bosky and weigh in. From everybody at the studio, thanks for watching.